sorry. Apparently my microphone wasn't on, that's an advantage. Okay, item number 15, Christchurch City Council Freight Management Action Plan. This is a receiving and adopting the information in the Christchurch City Council Freight Management Action Plan report. Is that, you'd like to move that? Seconded by Paul Lonsdale. Are there any questions for staff? Yes?
Yeah, just kind of trying to understand, like, have we got funding on budget for a number of these things?
Yeah, so this action plan is a plan for staff to how we're going to work on managing freight better. So it's all within existing staff budgets. It's not additional budgets required.
If I look at page 141, which is kind of the action plan summarised, it says consider bridge loading through count data. So do we, I mean, I was just surprised, like the Morehouse overbridge has got 30k restrictions for heavy vehicles, even though it's just been repaired. Is there kind of a more holistic approach to what we're doing in terms of the repairs as part of the freight strategy?
This is really about getting accurate count data on the number of freight vehicles that are moving around the network. We don't always have the best data around freight network. We have data around vehicles in general, but it's not always easy to distinguish between freight and other vehicles. So we're part of this is getting more data in terms of exactly where freight is moving around the network.
But what's the point of getting that data after we've already spent huge amounts of money repairing a bridge?
This is really about how we manage how freight moves around the network, and the issues that freight has, especially when freight's moving through residential areas, and the noise that causes for residents, and the damage that causes on our roads. Obviously all the repairs we've done, like the Morehouse overbridge, has taken account of the volumes over that bridge, so that would be factored into the design to make sure it can cope with the amount of volumes. This is more about where freight in particular is moving and the noise that causes on residents, rather than whether the bridges can handle it or not.
Okay, the only other thing I wanted to ask or possibly add is I don't see how community boards are involved in this, and given that they're making local decisions, and I know our board's been approached by Kiwi Rail, we've had presentations around Garland's Road, around the tannery. We've also done master plans through main roads and Ferry Road, where the port have made submissions. So what's the process in terms of the action plan for the community boards that are affected to have sort of a view, in terms of local decision making and input?
Sure. Yeah. This doesn't change any delegations with community boards. This is really about getting data, communicating with the freight industry and freight operators in terms of the needs of freight and the issues they're facing, and then also getting data on the issues that are facing residents on the impact of freight. Any changes that need to be made to the road network, or any additional investment that is recommended out of this action plan will still go through the normal channels in terms of delegations to community boards if that's needed, or council. So we're not proposing any new infrastructure out of this at this stage. It's really about collecting data so that we can inform anything.
Might be a good idea to go and brief the community boards though about the action plan.
Sure.
So once we've approved it, then if you make contact, I mean, I can think of your ward.
Bram Street
Would be particular.
Sure.
Obviously the Hagley Ferrymead and Shirley Papanui. I mean, they're obvious ones, but there's probably all of the community boards. Potentially.
Just in terms of partner organisations, I mean, I thought it would be good to add the community boards to that, because what concerns me is the community boards are making local decisions or recommendations, but by the time we get a report asked to consider something, if all the discussions happened with us not having input, then it just frustrates the process. So
we're adopting a report. I've just suggested a good way forward, I think, and But
it's not the actual strategy that's the issue. The issue is the ongoing discussions that are held between the different interested parties where boards make decisions on certain things or recommendations. So it's really involvement at the boards at an early stage.
To establish a good understanding of the issues surrounding local freight management within council, if that doesn't include community boards, when I've just suggested that there is a briefing to the community boards that are specifically affected, and that may mean all of them, it just seems to me that that's an easy way forward. Jimmy, and then Ali and Pauline.
Thank you, Mayor. One question, on page 134 and 135, regarding to a Greater Christchurch freight study, you particularly mention this one is not provide specific direction regarding to issue and solution for freight movement on the Christchurch, the city local road network. But my concern is because while regarding to this kind of infrastructure investment, we can get a kind of best outcome to improve economic growth. That's right. But I'm still concerned because if those the kind of freight pass through the Christchurch local road, more or less, I was told by my constituent, like noise, vibration, and damage routing issue. So which area we can reflect this one? How to mitigate this effect?
Sure. So the Greater Christchurch Freight Study was a joint study with the New Zealand Transport Agency. ECAM was involved, and the port and Selwyn and Waimak districts were involved, and the airport as well. Now that really concentrated on really the state highway network, so such as Brougham Street and those key routes.
Yes.
where there's lots of freight, and that's obviously managed by the New Zealand Transport Agency, not by council.
Yes.
This action plan is about the council roads, so the roads that aren't state highways, and it's really those roads where the long distance freight that is travelling through the city should be on the state highways.
Yes.
It should only be freight that is going to local businesses or deliveries in local areas that should be using our roads, and that's how we manage that on our roads. Whether we should be doing more to encourage freight to be using the state highways so that they don't go through residential areas unless they need to.
Yes.
And that's really what this is about. How do we manage our roads that we control, not the state highways?
Okay.
Yeah, it makes sense, and I mean, I'll use the classic example that I know from my background before I came here, is the trucks that would duck down Preston's Road to avoid the traffic jam on Martian Road. And that, we would want that discouraged in any way, shape or form, because the damage to that road is something that falls on the council, obviously, but also it disrupts the normal residential environment.
Keshner Road, St Tourist Road of the
yeah.
same
So
way.
even though we use Brougham Street as an example, it's the coming off those streets in order to avoid traffic jams, that's where the problem occurs, and it's probably the area where I actually agree that rack running is to be disapproved of, because actually trucks are not capable of rack running in the sense of the swiftness and the light touch that would imply. Ali and then Pauline.
I had a question on page 133, where right at the beginning with the introduction in the second paragraph, it talks about road freight provides a flexible and dependable benefit to freight operators, etc., etc. Is this only about road, or is this also about rail?
Yeah, so this is about how we manage Christchurch City Council's roads, because obviously we only control our roads. We've made it very clear to the agencies, the New Zealand Transport Agency and Kiwi Rail, who obviously own the rail network, that we would like to see more freight on rail, and that was put in our submission on the South Island Freight Plan. So we've made that very clear, but we can't control the rail network. That's not our network. So this is really how do we respond to freight that does use our roads, and how do we discourage that or manage that?
I would have thought where you've got a freight management action plan, if you are doing, as you said, speaking to the government and I might be wrong because it's but I couldn't see rail mentioned once in here.
No, because
And I do understand what you've just said, so you don't need to repeat it. But what I'm saying is surely there should be at least some reference to the fact that, you know, just putting more trucks on our roads isn't the answer, and managing those roads on our trucks isn't the answer. In fact, rail is a part of that, but I don't see any mention of
But
that
it's
anywhere
not, it's
in here.
about our local
I
roads.
understand that, but how our local roads work and how they manage with
It's
freight,
covered by the Greater Christchurch
It's in
Freight
here.
Study.
well,
So
why
this
isn't
is-
that mentioned in here?
It is,
It's
the
on
Greater
142.
Christchurch Freight Study is on page 3.
Yep.
I mean,
Page 142, there's a specific action plan on rail.
So that's the question I was asking, was is rail mentioned in here? I couldn't see it mentioned.
Just look at page 142.
I'm turning now. Oh, Christ, I can't even read
Fourth
that
one
anyway.
down, bullet point at
7.
the end.
You've got to get some new glasses.
Protection and resilience.
So these are new.
I mean, it is hard to read these small
Sorry,
tables, but
It is.
Okay, well, I'll take it that it's there. I can't read that, to be frank. I've got new glasses, it's not mine.
sort of, protect strategic locations for increased rail capacity, double tracking and sidings.
Okay, cool.
the only thing we can do there is through land use planning to protect areas for rail. Obviously, we don't invest in rail. That's Kiwi Rail, so that's part of the wider Greater Christchurch conversations we're having with them.
Sure.
Right, Pauline?
Oh, thanks. Just on page 139, I see you've mentioned we have our own internal monitoring and implementation group across 6 teams, and then you mentioned that one of the key deliverables is to establish a freight partners group. I'm just wondering who do you envisage to be on that, and what's the progress in getting this established? What's your time frame?
Sure. The New Zealand Transport Agency have just recently established such a group, and we've started to attend that. That's been quite helpful. So about every 3 months they get a range of freight operators to meet and discuss issues that they're having on the in travelling through Christchurch. And
Right, so that group's already
that's already been established,
and
and
we're already going.
it's been very positive. Yes.
Right, and have you got any idea of how the impact of the Western Bypass and reducing some of the freight coming into town? Will that have quite an effect?
We'll hope with that long term.
Compared to the last debate.
You know, the freight travelling from the north of the city through the airport and on to Rolleston and beyond. But once again, freight that needs to go into the central city or into the suburbs will have to use our network. So.
All right, thank you.
Anyway, right, okay, so we've moved and seconded that, and I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. That's carried.